welcome back. First episode of Season 2, the Strong Family Project Podcast.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project Podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment. And we're so excited to be back.
Today we'll be talking about parenting. Very broad, but it's all of Season 1. We went back to the episodes, and a couple times we talked about what does it mean to be a successful parent? What outcomes can we strive for and look forward to? And what are the things that we can do now to make those outcomes more achievable for us and our kids? There's multiple sides to this equation. So we're going to go a deep dive into what it is to be a successful parent. But before we do, we're going to go over a little bit of that little housekeeping because this is the first episode of Season 2. A couple of things that you're going to see differently is first, we're going to do the long format for you, but we're going to hold back on the 10-minute Tuesdays. Mel and I took a break during the holiday season from Christmas until just this episode dropping. A lot of exciting things happened. We've been on a lot of podcasts. Just recently, we were on the Ben Greenfield Life podcast, which was a major one. Released the book on Black Friday, the Strong Family Guidebook, and it's currently sitting at, I believe, number 5 in parenting for this week. And things have been going along so rapidly that what we want to do is focus our efforts on providing you a little bit more quality content, but that means we have to cut back a little bit on the quantity of content. So instead of throwing out so many episodes all the time and all the shorts we post on Instagram and all that we post on Facebook, we do need the energy and effort for our own family because we're in this as well with our 3 children. And so to balance it out, we're going to put our focused effort towards one longer podcast each week, dropping for you on Thursday, just like they have for the past almost 1 year. Mel, let's get into it with our questions and reflections from the holiday season, and then we'll get into the parenting discussion.
Sounds good. So my question for you was going to be, well, I'm going to preface it first, actually. So I love giving examples of how the path continues to work in our lives. I always like to give examples because that's the whole point here. We don't just put this out there and then just say, okay, it sounds good, but we actually live it every day. And in January, during the long winter break, the kids were home, we set aside one of our family meetings to be our goal-setting meeting for the year. And once again, we sat down and everyone took about 10 minutes or so to draw pictures, write down words of goals they want to achieve in 2024, which if you've listened to our goal setting episode, we talk about how we break that down into weekly commitments. Anyway, one of my goals was to choose puzzling, for example, because I got really into puzzling last year, or I rediscovered that I enjoy it, and choosing that and spending time with the kids over scrolling Facebook. And I've actually put timers on my Facebook where it shuts off after 30 minutes in a day. So what I wanted to talk about with this was, and I'll ask Joe what one of his goals was, but I wanted to say one of my goals was that I was going to choose to puzzle. And it's taken on this really cool life of its own. So every night after dinner, Henry looks at me and says, when are you going to come down and puzzle? And this was not something that happened about 3 months ago. It's almost because I started to do the puzzle. We'd all hang out downstairs. Henry got this arcade type basketball game that we luckily can fit downstairs. We have tall ceilings. It's another way that we're living out the value of wanting to spend time together. If for some reason I miss puzzling because there was just too much to clean up after dinner, he's disappointed. I wanted to share that because this almost just happened on its own. I set that goal of puzzling instead of doing tech in the evening. And now it's become this beautiful thing where the kids expect this time together in the evening. We're actually buying this little couch to put down there so that we have comfortable seating in that room where the puzzle is / the basketball game. And it's just this awesome thing that's happened just because we set this goal and not even seeing how it would necessarily implement itself, but it's really cool. So I wanted to ask you, what's one of your goals for 2024, given that we
Well, to
did
pump
that
the
goal
brakes there
session?
for a second,
Okay.
Let's stay on the same topic. There is an episode in Season 1 on your environment, how to set up your environment for success. And yes, we do have a structured steps of the path. If you visit strongfamilyproject.com, you can download them for free. It tells you exactly what the steps are. And the pushback initially for some people is not structured. Like, we want things to happen naturally. Yes, things should happen naturally. And so this is an example of that. We're like, all right, we're just going to make something happen in this room and hang out and see what happens. Not like we're going to sit down and have these discussion topics and these questions will be asked. And then it's this person's turn to speak. It's a more natural setting for things to come up, the kids to play. Logan does his 3D printing. Everett's cruising around. Mel's doing her puzzle. Henry and I see if we can get his basketball games. We'll pop a shot up to 100, how fast we can do that. And it's just good quality hangout time and not like a structured, here's what we're trying to accomplish in this.
But also because of the structure we've set up before, because we have our values set, which is so important, it leads us to allow more of these things to organically happen. So I'd like to say they just happen on their own. And like you said, we don't sit down and structure it very specifically, but we have this guide, which is why we call it the Strong Family Guidebook, because we're trying to guide ourselves in a certain direction. And by choosing that goal of choosing puzzling, or Henry really likes to hang out in the evening, he wants to be able to chat, we just provide new opportunities for that to happen, and then it takes on a life of its own. So even though I know the structure can be scary or frustrating, I think, however, if you just do little pieces of it, things will start to come together, and the kids will be they'll be the ones that keep you accountable. I thought I'll just puzzle when I feel like it, but now it's like Henry expects it every night, and I love that. Or the other day, even Logan, I said, I think I have to get to this meeting at the middle school, but it was snowing. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it home easily. And Logan's, just stay and hang out with the family. Even just those phrases, like there's an expectation that after dinner, even though we have dinner together, we will have other time together. And I love that.
One of our family core values is wanting to be together. And so just creating those scenarios for our family really helps. And if you're wondering where to get started, episode 1, core values, is a good place, and that'll help dictate what you want to do with your time after that. And so I think that's been powerful. As you heard earlier, when I said we're going to cut back on 10-minute Tuesdays, it's basically because this Strong Family project is a project for us. We are in the midst of it with you. We are working through our family lives, and we have a lot going on. We had a very successful company that we just sold. I have 2 careers that I'm juggling. Mel's very active at the school down there 3-ish days a week, volunteering at the school. So we're very much in the midst of it, and I don't want to sacrifice any of that. No offense, to just be like an parenting influencer. Like, I don't want to play those games. It's not important to me. So for the people the podcast are able to reach, we love it. We love that you listen and appreciate and listen to the long form content. I'm just not going to spend the time editing shorts and trying to do so-called popular flashy things to get attention. It's not a critical component of our lives, but what is teaching a relationship. So we're gonna do the best we can with minimal effort on social media is essentially where I'm going. We're gonna send out our newsletter, so you can get on that, strongfamilyproject.com. You get the 7 steps of the path. We'll stay in touch with email. I'm just not going to be an Instagram guy. I'm not going to be a Facebook guy. Don't even have a TikTok. Like, that bothers me. Someone shares a TikTok, it's not worth my time.
I know I don't enjoy social media either, but here's what's powerful about this podcast, I think, is like you said, we're living it right now. Like, I have a son who's about to go to high school next year, and like, we're starting a new chapter of our lives in that way. And like you said, we just sold a company. Like, we are living this path with you, and I think that's the power of it. It's not, hey, we lived this for 30 years and now we're just going to talk about it. No, we're learning as we go. We are living this as we go. We still have our conversations about things that are coming up with the kids constantly. And that's why it's important that that one aspect of the path about keeping a tab on all the relationships in the home. It was stressful in December and it's smoother now. But again, we're living this and we're talking to you about it as we're living it. And I think that makes it more powerful.
And so we really appreciate you. We really appreciate the shares. It's really the only way it's going to get out there. And the other people that have had us on our podcast, we really appreciate that as well. And so really, for me, I'll be spending my time with the family. I'm going to spend the time working. I love being productive. I don't view work as something negative. I have 2 great jobs right now. I'm a director of engagement for a company that's launching an exciting new program. I don't know if I should even talk about it 'cause it's not launched yet, but I get to do that. And then I get to be the head business coach because I owned gym companies that I get to coach other gym owners and business owners on how to grow their companies and how to hire people and do their org charts so that they can have some more freedom with their family. So everything fits together well. And I spend a significant amount of time training.
Yes, you do. You've stepped it up in that way. I don't even know how you could step it up, but you did.
This all relates. I love podcasts. I love learning. I cut back on social media time. Mel put a timer on her. She gives herself like 10 minutes on
Instagram,
which is very committed. And so I'm just going to go, like, on the weekends, I'll go get up early. I'll go run the mountains for 2 or 3 hours and consume 1 or 2 podcasts. I like the longer form ones, and that's why we're leaning towards longer form conversations. And I'll just learn and I'll run and I'll train because I'm still trying to discover a lot about myself as well. So we're figuring this all out together. And so that takes us back to the point where we got to cut back a lot of the fluffy things. Like if we want hangout time, something's got to go. So I would recommend starting your year off. Well, you're off. It's February. We were slacking in January.
We were
with a little bit of a time audit. During the day, ask yourself, is this serving me, this task that you're doing? And yes or no. Like, there's a tremendous amount of time in the day. People are like, I don't know how you get it all done. You have 3 kids, you have 2 jobs, you train probably 16 to 20 hours a week. You read books, you listen to podcasts. I'm just not built like that. I don't play on social media that much. I get up early and I try to be present. Wherever my feet are, I try to be. And so being in those moments makes things almost go slower during the day. And it's just a tremendous amount of time to get things done. And you don't even have to strive to get those things done. You don't have to train if you don't want to like that. It is extreme. There's just some more in life that I want to squeeze out.
Then what comes to mind for me is recently we were sitting in this very room with our kids over the weekend. We had a snow day on Saturday, and it was like a foot of snow that fell. And you were spending a lot of time with us that day. And one of the kids mentioned, like, why isn't Daddy working? Because as of a month ago, you had a 3rd career, and that is now past. So now you have that time. But the kids hadn't quite come around to the understanding that that would mean that you would spend more time, that you'd be living out the value of wanting to be together more often. And it was an opportunity. I asked my son, I said, you should ask Daddy why. Like, why is he here more? Because I don't want them to think it's just a passing thing. The interesting thing with kids is if you don't explain things to them, they will fill in the blanks on their own. They will think to themselves, maybe this is just something that's going to happen today because it's a Saturday, or whatever the case may be. They will fill in the blanks, oftentimes with information that might not be the truth. So it ended up being a great discussion as to why you were sitting with us more often, what we've done over the last 15 years to allow that you have more freedom now. And my point really is that we can't just let these things go. I think it's important to take that time with family and explain why things are the way they are, how we're living by our values. And again, that's just another piece of the puzzle, of the path puzzle. Oh, look, puzzles in my head all the time. But anyway, I wanted to mention that because I think it's important. If a kid's starting to think of something or has a question, talk about it because we don't want them to fill in the blanks with untruth.
In any relationship, parent-child, work relationships, friends, people are going to start making up stories in their own head to justify whatever's going on. So you might as well just have some clarity conversations around. I did want to get into that discussion a little bit, give you credit for that puzzle time, hangout time, creation. Now, we can revisit your question.
My question was, what's one of your goals for 2024?
Yeah, so we did our goal chart. We're about 75%. It's good to go over that. Not every goal happens on the chart. There's a couple things that I didn't accomplish, specifically with my training. I had left knee acting up. I wanted to go for this world record attempt, and it just wasn't in the cards for me, and we're bouncing back to it now. And also, it wasn't something that was critical. We had some hunting goals. Our kids were getting into archery when we first set our goals, and then they got into sports, which overlapped with elk seasons. We're not going to go out and shoot archery. So some of the goals we had to eliminate because it was more important for us to support the kids at their sports and activities, and then realize it's probably not as practical to carry those forward. And so I have some of the training goals I share, but outside of this podcast related. But for parenting goals, I want to help guide the kids to accomplish more things in their lives. And so looking at their goal list, I have to hold them accountable a little bit. Hey, you put these goals up, and some of these goals are things that, and I'm very proud of them, they know are good for them, but they don't necessarily want to do. Henry wants to be good at soccer. All right, as someone who's trained hundreds of athletes, here's a couple things you could do. You should at least get good, jog for 45 seconds, sprint for 15 seconds, and repeat that for 4 to 5 minutes, just so you get used to the cardiovascular requirements of going slow, then exploding fast. Doesn't necessarily want to do it, but he put it 4 times a week. I'm going to do this thing. And so he gets that minimum effective dose in. And sometimes I got to remind him. Logan for football. Hey, you do your farmer's walks. Yeah. Everett, we don't have to remind our 5-year-old. He's on top of everything. He's like the chief accountability officer in the house.
He is, and he participated in the goal setting this year. Last year, he just drew a picture. He was 4 years, I guess he was 4 years old. And then this year, he really did it. He stepped up. He was asking questions. We were trying to help him think of things that would make sense. I think one of his goals is to hike some mountains. Maybe we got more specific with it. But last year, just the fact that he went from just drawing a picture to now he's actually setting goals. And I think that's incredible. And even with Logan and Henry, we were more thoughtful this year with what's practical, what might they really need to help them move forward. Because it'd be great to just tell the kid, just write down whatever you want. But I think if there's trust and a good culture in your family, they will look to you for some suggestion. They will look to you for some practical, like how to pare it down to what's really going to be working well.
So that's where we are, Mel. For today's discussion, where the hell are we going with this parenting thing? So what does success look like over time? I think that'll give a lot of peace of mind to people. And that was what constantly came up in my head. Like, our parents that I see tend to carry a lot of stress, whether they're stressed about what their kids are doing currently or what their kids might do in the future, what the parent does now and how it's going to impact them, what's the parent's responsibility through these ages that the kids go through to moving out of the house. There's this kind of burden about it. And I feel that when I'm getting interviewed on podcasts, I get a lot of pushback on, it can't be that simple. What happens when the kid doesn't listen to you or does this thing and does this bad thing? Like, man, it really just doesn't happen if you're on top of it and you give them constant gentle pressure. And if it does happen, you sit down and you talk about it. Get some clarity around why, explain the consequence of their behavior, and then you move forward. Because while they're younger, the parent's responsibility, and before the conversation, I looked up the definition of parent. It said father, mother. Thank you, Oxford Dictionary.
Helpful.
And then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take it deeper. I'm going to look up parenting, the act of being a father and mother. Okay. Maybe we're on our own on this one. It's like saying, and I get the definition. It's like, all right, well, I want to be a basketball player. There's a difference between Michael Jordan and me playing at the JCC Summer League. What makes a successful basketball player successful? And while that's a specific niche, we're parents. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a parent or a future parent. So this is a game that we're going to have to play. So what does success look like as the child grows into adulthood? Mel, what are some of your thoughts?
I wrote down just the overarching goal here is we want to raise successful adults. That's the ultimate goal. We want our kids to be able to launch from the nest and do well in life. And when I say successful, I think I need to specify that I don't mean just financially. I mean that they're going to be successful in all areas of life, that they have emotional intelligence, that
let's pause there for a second and give people some more thought on when we say all areas of life. That's vague. People say that thing. What does that actually mean? So we have financial is a piece of it. You need to be able to pay for some things in your life. Spiritual, you have to have a connection with something. What else you got?
I think emotional intelligence, that's what I was starting with.
Emotional is a really good one.
Having good relationships, whether it's friends or a spouse.
Good relationships, even though this one gets put, I think you have to have good physical health. If you want to live, it's important to us that our kids are healthy so that they don't live a sickly life. That to me is a sad existence, and I don't want them to become dependent on someone else or a system to take care of them. Physical bucket's one for me.
I think we've covered most of them.
Go ahead and dive into the emotional one. I just want to give people some thought because the biggest one that comes up is the financial one. And I'm going to dive in more, but I'll let you go first.
Well, right. I wanted to make sure that when I said success, I didn't just mean financial success. I meant all the different areas. When I was thinking, you asked me, we're going to talk about the role of a parent. So I thought it was important to first talk about that goal. Because at the end of the day, you can ask yourself, did I do things today with my kids that sets them up to succeed in these ways? And I think for me, one of the foundational things is that as a parent, so let's say you are planning to become a parent. Let's say that you weren't planning and you're in the situation now where you're going to have a baby. It's important to first realize that you need to 100% commit to that. This is going to be an autonomous person outside of yourself who needs you to guide them. And I think that autonomous piece is important. That's one of the first things that occurred to me. And what I mean by that is your kids are not just extensions of you. If we look at our three boys, they are all so incredibly different. I can see them going in such different directions with their interests and just how their personalities, and I love that. It makes home life so colorful and fun. But I think it's important to first recognize this is an autonomous person. They are going to be on their own. They're going to be their own person. And we want to create skills with them. We want to create a safe environment for them to learn how to be who they are and not just be who we want them to be or just be an extension of myself. Because I think that is something that can be really dangerous if you just see your kid as you, but younger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is that you're not trying to create the second version of you. You're trying to support them in their own unique character traits. However, there are underlying skills like the ability to learn, the ability to set goals, those sort of things, which are universal to all different kinds of skills. And we're responsible for teaching them those universal skills and then letting their character grow how they see fit from there.
Yes, exactly. Our ultimate goal is we want them to have good character. But then we have to understand that they are going to be doing, if we have one kid, okay, for example, so Logan loves 3D printing. Now, I'm not a huge fan of talking about 3D printing. It's not in my interest, right? But because he loves it, I'm going to set myself back. We have to be selfless as parents and listen to what he has to say. If he wants to talk to me for an hour about 3D printing, I will listen because I want him to see that what he thinks and what his interests are important. So it's not just, I don't like this conversation or I don't like this topic, so we're just going to move on to what I want. That's not being a parent. I think one of the main underlying things in parenting is you need to be selfless.
Agreed.
Okay. And patient. I have patient written next to it, which we have talked about.
Yes, very. And there's so many words that these kids speak. There's just all flowing around. You just got to let them fly by you sometimes.
I put patient, and I know we've talked about patience before on previous episodes, and we've established that I have a high level of patience. That's one of my, it's in my nature to have patience. So whether it be listening to Logan talk about 3D printing for an hour, or during our evening debrief, which is part of the path, sometimes I sit down there for a good 30 minutes and I'm listening to whatever drama happened at school or whatever YouTube short they saw and it had some kind of confusing message on it. It's really important that I can sit there and handle it and take it in and be patient and just listen. Because as I'm noticing, different ages and stages they all require patience, but in different ways. So I think that's one of the underlying things with parenting is selflessness and patience.
So this is a little bit complicated. I'm going to push people a little bit further. I do feel like you are responsible for teaching your kids the skills required to be successful across what they choose to do. That requires you to learn what the skills are yourself. This is a little bit of a harder conversation because if we look just at the financial aspect, which a lot of people do, there's plenty of stories of, specifically, I've heard some recently like dads try to be the sacrificial lamb. Oh, we work all day and night so that you can have a future so that I can pay for your college, but they're not present. And they think their actions show, even though they might not think it, their actions show that they are less responsible for being present in the child's life through those formative years and more responsible for writing a check when they're 20 or 20, whatever, when they get out of college to pay it off. And I don't think that's a wise trade-off. And so I want to put some words to that now. And I saw an example of this when I was hiking with, I think it was Henry on his rites of passage. There was, we were going up the side of Pikes Peak, and there was 3 people coming up with decked up with like great hiking gear, real expensive stuff. You can really tell like there's a lot of money invested in this stuff. It was a mom, a daughter, and a dad. And the mom and daughter would walk ahead to one of the switchbacks and wait, and the dad would come popping up, stop, and eat some peanut butter M&Ms. And like when he would walk by, he's like, oh, like don't ever get old. I'm like, how old are you? And he's like 44. I'm like 2 years older than I am. But he didn't say that because it was pretty apparent that he had sacrificed so that they had lots of nice things. Financially very successful. I'm going to take a leap of faith. Financially very successful, very confident of that. And all the mother and daughter wanted was for him to be healthy. But he wasn't. And the story he was telling himself is that, hey, it provided all these great things and it cost me my health, but that was worthwhile because I'm a sacrificial lamb for this family. the mother and daughter, and I saw the pity in their eyes as they look at this man when they want one thing and he provided something else, and their values aren't aligned, and they clearly loved each other very much. They were waiting impatiently. He was struggling, trying to make it, but there was such a value misalignment there that it's important to talk about now and to put it out there now, because even when I started out, it was, all right, I'm going to provide financially. I'm going to work day and night. I'm going to make sure this box is checked, and had a lot of success in that realm. But I don't think that supersedes success of taking care of yourself, your family, being there for your family, teaching them the skills in both the physical training, the emotional that Mel's talking about, that there has to be a trade-off. I don't want your trade-off to be, I'm only going to work so that I can write a bill for college. I think that is honestly stupidity. It's lazy parenting. It is an easy path for you to say, oh, well, I'm sacrificing myself. And then you do what you want to anyways, but not really. And you're one foot in both, and you live with the stress about it. And so it is a very serious conversation to have with yourself on, is this what you need to be doing to this extent, and what sacrifices are you giving up on the family side?
Well, right. If you decide that you're going to spend more time with family, that might require a sacrifice of having less nice things. So there's going to be sacrifice regardless. I'm reading this fantastic book called The Men We Need by Brant Hansen. And I'm reading it because I'm a mother of 3 men to be. And I think it's really important that I understand what kind of skills and what kind of challenges that boys are going to go through, because since I'm not a boy. And you were talking about this, and there's a chapter in there where he talks about how you might have to make a sacrifice. The only way that I'll be able to spend more time with my kids is if I live in a trailer. Okay, then fine, live in a trailer. And I know that sounds extreme, but the point really here is, what are you spending your time on? Your kids are going to eventually grow up. We had this conversation a couple weeks ago, slightly, where I mentioned to you, Logan's going to be in high school next year. That's 4 years. And it makes me want to start crying right now thinking about that. But the point is, time is ticking. The window is closing. And I don't want to waste this time. I don't want to waste this time that we have. These are, I know, formative years. People say that, and they oftentimes refer to the little baby years. But this time that is critical as well, as he's a teenager, as he's starting to become more independent. We don't want to lose this time to just writing a check later on. I think there's a bit of is it really our responsibility to pay for their college? What's more important? Teaching them skills, self-control, all that patience, all those things we're talking about that will make them have good character, or just being able to hand over a check? And maybe we're oversimplifying that to a degree, but I think that there are sacrifices that can be made that will lead you to have more time with them, that will lead you to be more intentional with your parenting day to day. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that evening puzzle time, I could easily say, I need me time. I need to go do this for myself right now and not be with them. But you know what? 4 years from now, Logan might not be here. And why would I have chosen 30 minutes on Facebook over 30 minutes of puzzling? It almost sounds absurd. So it's a great book. I think everybody who has sons should read that. It just gives you more perspective on how to live in the now. And he also defines love. So obviously in your family, you love your family. And he defines love as wanting the best for the other person. It's not, what can I do that I can get something back? Sometimes in the evening when I'm talking to the kids at the evening debrief, all I want to do is leave because it's stressful and difficult. But again, it's not for me, it's for them. And it is for me to a degree, because I'm investing in this relationship so they will come to me when things get difficult. But again, love is about wanting the best for the other person. It's not selfish.
I think as parents, we are in charge, and you are in charge of one of the most enduring organizations in human history, and that is your family. Let's go look through some empires. Roman Empire lasted a long time, went down. Egyptian Empire lasted a really long time, went down. People are so concerned about society these days, up and down empires throughout the course of human history. You know what's always been there? The family structure. And that is what you can influence. You are responsible for that. Sure, there's tons of things outside, and I explained to my friends the concentric circles, a nerd way of saying, what you are most responsible for in the order you are responsible for it. Number one is your life and your actions. You have to take care of yourself. I am sick of the garbage, Mel, where people are like, I got to sacrifice myself to go try to do this. And you live a crappy life and you're not helping anyone. That's not even true. You want to live a terrible life. You want to be overweight and obese. You never take care of yourself. You want to not read the books because you're stressed out. You don't want to educate yourself. You don't want to practice the skills so that you can think around and worry about someone else. You're lying. And you're lying to yourself. And it is very tough. And the reason why I use that strong word, lying, because we have to confront it. Been there, done it, had to work through it. You have to confront reality. And so working through those things, like, you have to take care of yourself first. The next one is the relationship with your family that you have direct influence over. And so if you're sacrificing family life to go chase around all these like worldwide issues, yeah, it's nice to care about those things, but if you're not taking care of your household, you haven't earned the right to care about those things, in my opinion. And once you take care of your household and you start raising your kids, then you can start influencing your community. Then you can start influencing your society. It can't go in the other way. You can't try to start influencing society but have a train wreck at home, terrible personal mental health and personal development, and think that you're going to change the world. It has to happen in that order. The people who do end up changing the world are the ones that try to start taking care of themselves first and understanding their mindset and then growing it from there. And so the reason why I say that is you're responsible for the most enduring organization. And that's what I shared from the beginning of mankind, that family structures. If you look out in nature, this is how it's always happened, regardless of what the political environment is, what the inflation environment is, how many cars are parked in your driveway, or how nice your clothes are. You're responsible for maintaining your family structure, sometimes at the sacrifice of those other items.
Going back to the middle of your concentric circles, because I really like that, what comes to mind for me, and I wrote down, is being a good role model. To be a role model, you have to do the stuff yourself. I'll give an example for me. One of my goals this year is to, again, read more books. I didn't do great with that last year. And I thought, how can I, for some reason during the day, I just can't make it happen. Because in my head, it's like I should be doing something else. So what I do is in the evening, I bought myself a little light to put by the bed so that I don't wake you up. And I read for like maybe 30 minutes. My goal is like 10 to 30 minutes. The books I'm reading is really good now, so usually it goes to about 30. But all of a sudden, I've read 2 books already. And I feel like I'm learning so much. I'm choosing books that I can learn from. I'm not just choosing a novel, and I'm not knocking novels, but I just read Boys in the Boat, which is based on a true story of the 1936 Olympics. Fascinating. And all of a sudden, there's this new part of me that I didn't even know was there that likes history, that like learning about these strong men from history and what they were able to do and how their families were structured and how they got through such difficulty. And I'm getting off my point. My point is I was able to start implementing this habit of reading at night. And one of my goals with that is to show the kids that this is something that they can do as well. So I want to be a good role model with cooking. That's another goal for this year, is to do an even better job with providing really great dinners. Not just because we sit down together, but because I want the kids to get excited about good food. So their favorite thing now that I make is like sourdough pretzel bread on the weekend. But I want to really live it. And I think the more you step into living it, living your values, living the stuff you want your kids to take on in their adulthood, the more exciting it gets. You just have to start, and then it'll start to snowball in a good way.
All right, Mel, it's time to get to what you think it means to be a successful parent of adult children. I'll go first, and then I'll let you
But I don't have adult children.
consider it. I'll let you consider
Okay,
it.
thank you.
I mentioned this briefly early on in season 1. I really hope there's a moment where each individually they come up to me and they say, hey, I'm going to go do this thing with my life. I got it. And for me to understand, yes, they do have it. And so that takes into account all of the skills. Maybe it's, hey, I'm going to go be a 3D printer. I'm going to go be a professional soccer player. I'm going to go into the trades. I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go travel the world. It doesn't matter what it is. But a moment where they say, hey, I'm going to do this thing. I'm ready. I've learned. I'm ready. I'm time to graduate into adulthood. I've got this. And for me to understand that they do have it. And from that point, I believe it's our responsibility to support, to be there for guidance and wisdom. They have to deal with the consequence of their actions from there on out. It's no longer our responsibility to shoulder the consequences of our adult children's actions. And I wanted to give you some peace of mind about that. If you did your job throughout childhood, they get out there and they start making decisions in the real world. They don't have to go to you for approval. They don't have to go to you for relationship, but I want them to want to go to us. And so that's a very different thing. I'm not going to butt in and be like, hey, here's how you should do it. I'm not going to treat them like a child when they're an adult. Say, hey, like, we've done a lot together. I appreciate you. Give you a firm handshake, 2 pats on the shoulder. You're now in charge of your actions and your consequences. I want to help you as much as possible. Come to me whenever you need some support. And if they choose a bad path, they have to eat that consequence. That's life. If they choose a college career they want to change, I chose a college career teaching, taught high school for 8 years, and then I decided to change. I had to deal with the consequence of that action. I had to start a company, decide what the consequence of that action. And so we can no longer, as parents, attach our value to our adults' children's actions if we did everything we need to when they were younger. I'll give one more example outside of the parenting realm to make more sense. So it ran this great company, Synergy, 15 years, training adults, training athletes, helping people live longer and healthier lives. And sold the company to a young man who came up with us and trainer and deserves the opportunity. And I hope maybe he expands it across the country. I don't have the right, if he does that, to say, I taught him everything I know. Well, no, like, he did it. He did the actions. He gets to reap the consequence, which is, in this case, a very positive consequence. If it goes the other way, like, I can't sit back and armchair quarterback and be a jerk about it. I would have done it differently. No, hey, that's life. Adults make decisions, and I hope it's very successful. Our kids as adults will make decisions. I hope it's very successful. However, we cannot take on the burden of our children's lives once they are adults. It's a rite of passage, and it's a big conflict I see with parents trying to adult their adult kids, and all of a sudden the kids start pulling back. There needs to be an onus of their life at that point. So I look forward to the moment where they make a decision and say, I got it, I believe it, they believe it, and they go. And then we'll see what happens. There for support. I want them to want to communicate, but I'm not going to butt into their lives, because it's time for me to reap the consequences of how I parented them. If I parented them and they don't want to hang out with me anymore, I probably didn't do a great job. So now is the action time, so that they can be successful adults and we have a successful, healthy relationship. And that's what I view successful parenting as.
You gave me some time to think. And I want to react too. First of all, I want our kids to be adults. I think some people want their kids to just stay kids forever. I'm not going to have the kid who's going to live in my basement and just going to like mooch off of me. That's not what I want. I want them to be successful adults. So that's the first thing. Secondly, this is similar to what you said. I want to earn the place in their lives to be that person they come to for wisdom. I want to earn that. And you earn it now when you're raising them. So when they're 23 or whatever the age might be that they like leave the house or start on their own or whatever they do, I have to reconcile with myself. Did I do enough to earn that? You can't go back and change it, right? You can't go back in time and make them little again. So I want to do everything I can now to earn that. And there's times sometimes I come to you and I'm like, I think I almost spend too much time on this parenting thing. Like I almost overdo it because I just want to do so much for them now. But I'm really trying, and this is part of why it's important that Joe and I stay like a tight couple. Like, we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves, because first of all, if we're not on the same page, we're not going to parent well. Secondly, if we're not on the same page, when they leave, what are we going to have left? Like, we want to enjoy each other. So when they go, we're not just like empty and no longer have any purpose. But again, I think the major thing for me when they're adults is that I want them to be adults. And I want to earn the right to be someone that they come to when they need that wisdom. And I agree with everything you said. I want to support them. Of course, I want grandkids, and I would love to have that role as a grandparent.
Well, I think that's part of it. Like, I should have mentioned it. So you want them to leave your family with a desire to start their own family. Like, they enjoyed the family life so much that they can't wait to create their own version of it based on how you led them through life.
How cool would it be if, like, let's say I'm going to say, when one of our sons get engaged, what if they came to us and said, hey, can you guide us through creating our values? Wouldn't that be so awesome? And even if they didn't come to us, the fact that they would want to create their own values to start with their family would be almost like a culminating moment.
Hey,
right?
adults, no free rides. Strong Family Guidebooks right there on Amazon
That's
for your kids, like $9. Hopefully you can afford it.
We won't give
Just
them a free
kidding.
copy. Okay, I know.
Dude, you're adults.
That's exciting though. I don't want the kids to grow up, but I'm excited for when they grow up. It's like this dichotomy that I'm excited for. But yeah, I want to be in that position. And we joke a lot about with this too. We're like, well, we're just going to show up and dad's just going to show up and do a workout or show up and what did you say about putting rocks in their front yard or something?
I just want to put a pile of rocks in their yard and see what happens.
Okay.
They do crazy things to us as kids, so I keep little notes that
Right.
every once in a while I'm going to drop something crazy on them as adults.
And again, this has also occurred to me. One of the reasons we moved out here is because we're in a place that there's a higher chance that the kids would want to stay here. That does not mean that they have to stay here. And if they decide to move to a different state or move somewhere further away, that does not mean that we failed as parents, but we still set up situations that would provide them as much opportunity as possible, whether they decide to take it or not. So again, we're just doing everything we can in these years to earn that right in their lives as adults to still be there.
So here's your action items out of this first of season 2 long form content podcast. Take some time to define what success looks like for your family and for your children as they get older and as your family gets older. I'm talking about you and your spouse as well. That's the only way that you'll have peace of mind as those days approach. It gives you a game plan of things to work now, but if you leave success ambiguous, you'll have no idea if you get there, and you become very stressed, and you start to worry when the kids go, and you start to worry if you did a good enough job, and then you become needy on the kids. Did I do a good job as a parent? And then you'll depend on them to tell you that. And like, define it now. Take a breath. Write down the outcomes that you want. And start working towards those. It's going to be huge for your peace of mind. It's going to be huge for your children. It's going to be huge for your family's future. And so once you define what success looks like, start nudging in that direction. Great place to start is getting the Strong Family Path going for your family. Again, it's the freebie at strongfamilyproject.com. It's the 7 steps of running an organization as a family that you can implement your own beliefs into, your own spin on, make it completely your own family. But you need a little bit of structure so you can get to that success faster. Mel, any last words of wisdom before we land this first episode?
Yes. Be willing to do some difficult and honest self-reflection. If you set up that, what does success look like? And at the end of the day, maybe you sit down just for 30 seconds and ask yourself, what did I do well today that leads us towards this success? Or what do I need to work on? I think this really is fundamental. You have to be willing to ask yourself the tough questions and be vulnerable with yourself, with your spouse, with your family.
And I will end with this last thought. I want to give credit to my buddy Vince. Last year, I spent time educating parents on how to write a book for their families. It's just if you've heard of the book Daily Stoic, I highly recommend that book. But it's the same style for your family. Write down every day something you believe in so the kids have something to read as they get older. He finished his book. He's reading it to his kids each night, him and his wife, Vanessa. I got to see it when I was out in New Jersey because I get to work for his company. And it's a great thing to do and see. And so not many people carried that project to the finish line because these projects aren't easy. They are simple. Every day, write down something you believe in. And then once you get up to 365, write a paragraph underneath. And then you just get it printed, and now you have a book for your family. But he was able to see that project through to the end, and he's telling me about the value he gets out of it. And again, I got to see it firsthand. The conversations that they've had has been so amazing. Shout out to Vince and Vanessa for taking a step. And then so many of you who have been listening, who have started implementing the Strong Family Path and sending us notes, please keep that up. You can reach us right through the website, strongfamilyproject.com. Let us know if you have any questions on the path. We will occasionally post on Instagram. And that will automatically post to Facebook, and I just won't check that very much. But if you want to reach out to us, official Strong Family Co. on Instagram, we will be there as well to help support you on your path, get you some resources, and please update us with wins too. We want to celebrate more people. Thank you for listening to the first episode of Season 2, Strong Family Project. Talk to you in a week.